I want to talk to you about something we often overlook: the sheer weight of a single act. One moment, one choice, one gesture. See, the world teaches us to think in grand gestures, to wait for the stage, for the spotlight, for that once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to do something big. But God smiles in the little things. I remember years ago, this was before the movies, before the awards, before anybody knew my name. I was walking down 125th Street in Harlem. It was winter, the kind of cold that makes your bones feel hollow. People were moving fast, hunched over, focused on getting to wherever they had to go. New Yorkers, you know how it is. Ain't nobody making eye contact. But then I saw this man sitting on a corner. Looked like life had given him all it had and then took the rest. His coat was torn at the shoulder, shoes barely held together with hope and duct tape, but his eyes still alive. He wasn't begging, just sitting, watching, like he was waiting on something or someone. And I had this sandwich in my hand, half eaten, turkey on wheat, nothing fancy. I walked past him at first like everybody else, but something in me said, turn around. So I did. I knelt down, looked him in the eye, and I said, you hungry? He nodded once. I handed him this sandwich. What he said next, I never forgot. He looked up at me, this man who'd been passed by all day, and he said, I thought God forgot me, but maybe he didn't. Right there in the middle of Harlem, in the bitter cold, God showed me something. It wasn't about the sandwich. It was about being seen. It was about recognition. It was about grace. See, to that man, I wasn't just handing him food. I was handing him a reminder that heaven still knows his name. That's the power of a single act. You never know what someone's going through. You don't know the weight they're carrying, the prayers they whispered last night, or the edge they're standing on. But you, with one decision, one phone call, one smile, one kind word, can be the reason they step back from that edge. You can't always trace the outcome. That's not your job. Your job is to show up, to love, to give, to forgive, to try. Let God handle the rest. Now, we like to think God smiles when we preach sermons or donate thousands or lead big movements. And yes, he does. But sometimes he smiles when you pick up your child and say, I love you. When you listen to your spouse without checking your phone. When you tell the truth, even though it costs you something. When you help someone who can't repay you and never will. We live in a world that celebrates the visible, the viral, the loud. But heaven keeps score differently. Heaven celebrates the invisible, the faithful, the intentional. You may never get credit for the best things you do in this life. That's all right. Because if heaven smiled, then that's all the credit you ever needed. Let me be honest with you. This world will wear you out chasing applause. It will have you performing for likes, hustling for validation, and bending over backwards to fit into spaces you weren't even built for. You post something and check back every few minutes just to see if the heart's multiplied. You say the right things, wear the right brands, go to the right parties, not because it feeds your soul, but because it feeds your image. But here's the hard truth. Applause fades. Even when it roars today, it goes quiet tomorrow. See, I've stood on stages. I've heard people cheer. I've walked red carpets, signed autographs, smiled for cameras. And I'll tell you something that might surprise you. None of that lasts. It doesn't fill you up. It doesn't answer the questions that echo in your soul at 3 a.m. It doesn't give you peace, because peace doesn't come from popularity, it comes from purpose. And purpose doesn't come from a crowd, it comes from God. We weren't made to perform for the world, we were made to live for an audience of one. Now, that doesn't mean you don't work hard. It doesn't mean you don't strive for excellence. What it means is your motive shift. Your why gets rooted in something deeper. You stop asking, do they see me? And you start asking, does he see me? And is he pleased? I remember when I was younger, before I had any roles, before I even knew what my future looked like, I'd go into auditions trying to be who I thought they wanted me to be. I'd contort myself to fit whatever mold the room expected. But one day, and I'll never forget this, I heard a quiet voice inside me say, be who I made you to be. That's who I bless. That voice, that was God. From that moment, everything changed. I walked into rooms differently. I stopped performing and I started showing up. Whole, grounded, focused. Not because I thought they'd approve, but because I knew he already had. Let me tell you something. When you live for God's smile, it liberates you from everybody else's frown. You stop shrinking to please people who don't even know your story. You stop hiding parts of yourself just to be accepted by folks who are just as lost. You stop chasing temporary praise and start pursuing eternal purpose. People's opinions are like the weather, changing by the minute. But God's presence, that's constant. His truth doesn't shift with trends. His love isn't transactional. You don't have to impress him. You just have to obey him. You know, the world will tell you success isn't being seen. But heaven says success isn't being faithful. The world says make noise, but God says be still and know that I am God. Some of the most powerful moments in your life will happen in secret, in prayer, in forgiveness, in sacrifice, where nobody's watching but him. But trust me, that's enough. That's more than enough. Because when you live for God's smile, when your heart wakes up in the morning and says, Lord, let my life today bring you joy, that's when you start to live in your true power. That's when you stop being tossed by the opinions of others. That's when your soul finds rest. That's when purpose starts flowing through everything you do. Your work, your relationships, your service, not for the likes, not for the applause, but for the yes in God's heart. Because at the end of it all, when the stage goes dark and the world moves on, the only question that will matter is this: was God pleased? So the question hangs in the air like a note still ringing. What will you do tomorrow to make God smile again? What will you do when your feet hit the floor in the morning that makes heaven lean in and say, there, that one, that soul right there is walking with me? I'm not talking about perfection. I'm talking about intention. Because God never asked you to be flawless. He asked you to be faithful. We've been trained to think change requires a platform, that you've got to be famous, influential, important to make a difference. But the truth is, some of the most significant work you'll ever do for God won't make a sound, won't get a headline, won't go viral. It might happen in your home, in your car, in the quiet corners of someone else's life where no one else sees, but he does. You see, God doesn't need grand gestures. He needs willing hearts. You can be the reason he smiles by showing up fully for your child when you're exhausted, by walking away from gossip instead of leaning in, by telling the truth when a lie would be easier, by giving up your seat, your ego, your comfort, just to lift someone else. Maybe it's forgiving someone who doesn't deserve it, or asking for forgiveness when pride tells you not to. Maybe it's holding someone's hand in a hospital room, or praying for a stranger who will never know your name. Those things matter eternally. You don't have to be in a pulpit to preach. Your life is the sermon. And listen, every single day, you're writing something, a story, a legacy, one decision at a time. And the question isn't whether people will remember your name. The question is whether they'll feel God's love because they crossed your path. You got to wake up with that fire, that quiet, holy determination. Today, I will be the reason God smiles. You might be the only Bible someone ever reads. You might be the answer to someone's prayer. You might be the proof that grace is real, that love is still alive, that hope is still worth holding on to. And it doesn't require a stage, just obedience, just compassion, just courage. Every time you choose faith over fear, love over apathy, justice over silence, you reflect God's heart into a broken world. And when that happens, heaven celebrates. Think about that for a moment. All of heaven, the angels, the Creator himself, rejoicing, smiling, because you chose to live with integrity, because you reached out to someone in pain, because you resisted bitterness and gave mercy instead. Don't let the world convince you that your ordinary moments are insignificant. There's no such thing as ordinary when God is involved. Every breath is a canvas. Every act of love is a masterpiece in the making. And every time you choose to walk in his light, you are part of something eternal. So when you go out tomorrow, when you face the traffic, the deadlines, the disappointments, the noise, remember who you are. Remember whose you are. And live like heaven is watching, not with fear, but with purpose, with joy, with resolve. Because you, just by being faithful in the moment you're given, can make the Creator of the universe smile. So I leave you with this. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to show up every day with a heart ready to serve, a spirit open to love, and a mind grounded in purpose. Let your legacy not be measured by applause or accolades, but by the smiles you caused in heaven. Let the way you treat people, the choices you make when no one's watching, the way you carry love in a cold world, let that be your testimony. Because every day you get a new canvas. Every moment is a chance to make a mark, not on a stage, but on a soul. So wake up and ask, God, what can I do today that will make you smile? And when you lay your head down at night, may your spirit rest knowing that somewhere, because of your kindness, your courage, your obedience, God looked down and said, that's my child. And today, I smiled. Thank you. God bless you. Keep walking in the light.